Welcome to one of the most important moments in Asian American Pacific Islander political and cultural history. Our forefathers came to this continent over 150 years ago, and we helped to build this country. There is a long and checkered history about that, which someday we want to tell all of you. But we did help build it, and so we own it. Therefore, we must be visible and we must be woke at all times, not just before an election and not just when we're in the headlines. So on behalf of the members and the board of the AAPI Victory Alliance, of all the senators who've joined us today and our coalition partners, thank you. It is now my honor to introduce to you the Vice President of the United States. She represents all of us. But as you can imagine, we are particularly proud of her Indian heritage, and we lay claim to you, Madam Vice President, as being the first Asian American Vice President in the history of the United States. Madam Vice President, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shekhar. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do. And to all the leaders who are part of this convening this evening, I thank you, each and every one of you. Needless to say, there are people who we may never meet and people who may never know your name, who are benefiting because of your work, your hard work, and your advocacy, and your strength, and your courage, and your commitment. So with that, I say good evening. It is an honor to be with everyone this evening. And I want to begin, of course, by thanking our chairman, Shekhar, and Natalie Reyes and Stephanie Brown-James for your leadership. The work of the AAPI Victory Alliance is so important, and it is the work of mobilizing our AAPI community, of strengthening the community, and strengthening our democracy for all Americans. And this work could not be more important. So thank you all. You know, as we emerge from the pandemic, I believe that we are at the start of a new era. I believe that we have a unique opportunity now to shape our nation's future, to transform how we live, how we work, and how we vote for the better. First, we have the opportunity to shape how we live. And what I mean by that is how we live together. How we live together as one nation, built by many. How we respect one another and how we see one another. So early on in the pandemic, 1,100 anti-Asian hate incidents had been reported. Over a year later, just about a year later, we are now up to more than 6,600. And nearly 2 in 3 were reported by women. And I will tell you, as the previous Attorney General of California, and I published hate crime reports, those numbers are always underreported. So the numbers I just shared with you are not an accurate reflection necessarily of the number of hate crimes that have actually occurred. In March, President Joe Biden and I sat down with Asian American leaders in Atlanta, Georgia, days after the shootings, tragic shootings that killed 8 people, 6 of whom we all know were of Asian descent, 7 who were women. And I spoke then about how Asian Americans have the right to be recognized as American, not as the other, not as them, but as us. In America, I do believe a harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us. And we should all then recognize that interconnection between each of us. And that is why, thanks to leaders like my dear friend, Senator Mazie Hirono, and the great Grace Meng, the Congresswoman from New York, Congress passed the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. And that is why the president will soon sign this historic bill into law. Second, we have the opportunity to shape how we work. And I'm talking about putting Americans to work in good union jobs. The AAPI community knows the power of unions, building on the tradition of the Filipino farm workers who organized in the 1960s to the fact that as of today, we know at least 10% of AAPI workers are represented by unions. And we are working, of course, to increase that number because it is about making sure that all workers have a voice in a way that we ensure they are paid for the value of their work and they work in a place that gives them safety and protection. I'm also talking about removing the barriers that make it harder for people to work. And that means lowering the cost of childcare and strengthening our care infrastructure for those with aging relatives. We were all raised to take care of our elders, to understand how much they deserve to have our respect and dignity. And so that is a priority for us because everyone who wants to work should have the support they need to support their family members, including their elders, and do what they need to do to work. Finally, we have the opportunity to shape how we vote. We have the opportunity to make voting easier, not more difficult, to lift up more voices, not fewer. And we must start by fighting against attacks on voting rights. And it is happening right before us in so many instances, in such a blatant way, and in an unapologetic way. So we must fight against those attacks. Since the start of 2021, more than 360 bills to restrict the right to vote have been introduced in nearly every state in the United States of America. Many of these bills specifically target vote by mail. And let's be clear about this, specifically target vote by mail, while 64% of Asian Americans vote by mail. In fact, in Georgia, in the state of Georgia, in the runoff election that just happened, which, by the way, changed the balance of the United States Senate so that now I'm the tiebreaker, well, nearly 34% of Asian Americans voted by mail compared to 24% of voters on average. So we must see these efforts for what they are. Let's be clear-eyed. They are an attempt to suppress the right to vote. And while we must be vigilant in defending the voting rights that currently exist, we must also do that and work to expand the right of all Americans to vote. And that includes urging Congress to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and urging the Senate to pass the For the People Act and to send both to the president's desk for signature. And I want to be clear. As far as I'm concerned, voting rights is not a Democratic right or a Republican right. It is an American right. So let me end today where I began, with where I see us in terms of this new era that I believe we are in. I know this past year has been marked by pain, so much pain for so many, including, and in particular, members of the AAPI community, when we saw the targeting, when we've seen the hate, when we've seen the viciousness of it all. And we all see that. And as a member of this community, I share in that outrage and grief. And I believe we have an opportunity now to turn that pain into action, to turn that pain, that righteous anger, because of the injustice of it. We have an opportunity to turn that into power, into power. The work to transform our nation's future. And it is what I call American aspiration. It is the ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been. It is the determination not only to dream, but to do. It is the mission of the AAPI Victory Alliance. Thank you all again for everything you do, and may we all continue to aspire to what can be. May God bless you, and may God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I would love to see if Senator Duckworth is here and we can bring her on stage for a quick conversation. Senator Duckworth, Senator Hirono, Senator Lujan, Natalie Reyes, and Stephanie Brown James. The Vice President gave us a stirring message, and it was, don't just talk, don't just think, feel the pain, but act. I think, Natalie, can you, I don't see Senator Duckworth yet, so perhaps we can begin with Senator Lujan then. Stephanie, would you start us off with Senator Lujan?
Be my pleasure, Shaker. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Stephanie Brown James, co-founder of the Collective PAC, the nation's largest organization focused on supporting Black candidates running for office on a local, state, and federal level. And it is indeed my honor to represent the senator from New Mexico, Senator Ben Ray Lujan.
Well, Stephanie, it's always an honor to be with you. And Shaker, thank you so very much. Now, I would yield to my senior senator, Senator Hirono. And with her,
go right ahead, Ben.
Look, Shaker, it's so monumental for us to be together today. And when the invitation was extended to many of us that have been so supportive of our colleagues and our constituents, the AAPI community, I think that's why you saw so many of us respond with a very heartwarming yes. To hear the inspirational words of Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm always inspired by her, whether it's hearing her speak to a large group or getting to have a conversation with her one-on-one. I've learned so very much from her. The honor that I've had also serving with Senator Hirono, not just now in the Senate, but also in the House. And Stephanie, what I appreciate about how you opened this up, not just the work that you have done, and Quentin have done as well, but the work of Nathalie. I'm inspired by every one of you, Shaker, when the communities have come together to help elect more Black Democratic candidates, more Hispanic Democratic candidates, more AAPI Democratic candidates across America. I'm now proud to be part of the most diverse United States Senate that we have had, and really having our own mini tri-caucus. I very much look forward to the conversation today. It's an honor to be with each and every one of you. I congratulate you and I celebrate you for the accomplishments this year. And it's such an honor to be serving on behalf of the American people with the urgency that we have to be able to work with both Senator Duckworth and also Senator Hirono. And you saw that action when Mazzy said we needed to come to the floor. And when Senator Hirono speaks, we listen and we act. And I want to thank her for her leadership. And such an honor, Stephanie. I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Senator Hirono, you should know that we deliberately switched it up so that we're all playing slightly different roles. I'm going to let Natalie introduce you.
Well, I'm happy to do that. What an honor. Good evening, everyone. Muy buenas noches a todos. I'm Natalie Reyes, President and CEO of Latino Victory. Latino Victory works to build Latino political power by supporting Latino candidates across this great country, including all 4 Democratic Latino senators. And today, obviously, Ben Ray Lujan here with us. Today, we are proud to join forces with AAPI Victory Fund and the Collective PAC. Latino Victory became the first national Latino organization in the country to endorse President Biden before the Nevada caucuses and the South Carolina primary, because we knew he would create an administration that represents our nation's rich, very rich diversity. Our decision was affirmed when Vice President Kamala Harris became the first woman to hold this position, and we are so honored to have her joining us this evening. Thank you, Vice President Harris, for your leadership, for blazing a trail for millions of Americans, especially women of color and immigrants. And of course, Senator Hirono, you've been there from day one, also being the champion for all of us. So with that, happy to present you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Natalie and Stephanie and Shaker. And my friend Ben Ray, I'm so glad you joined us. I want to thank the AAPI Victory Alliance because we're going to be focusing a lot on some policy issues for this portion. So I'm really glad to join you, and always good to hear from my friend Kamala Harris, who served on the Judiciary Committee with me, and we had, I would say we had quite the experience on that committee. I missed her. So at a time when there has been such an increase in hate crimes, totally unprovoked hate crimes against the Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, apart from the pain of watching people from our community get attacked in unprovoked and vicious ways, what's happened is that so many groups are coming together. And I see so many AAPI advocates and people just coming forward and speaking out, all of us condemning these kinds of attacks. And so, yes, the COVID-19 hate crimes bill was recently passed by the House just yesterday. And we had a small enrollment ceremony today where Speaker Pelosi signed the bill to be sent to the White House for a signing ceremony tomorrow. This bill got the support of so many different communities, the Jewish community, the Hispanic community, the Black community, and of course, the AAPI community. And so we had a bipartisan bill, which I'd like to see more of, let's put it that way. At the same time, of course, we know we need to get things done on behalf of the American people. So as Vice President Harris noted, we need to make sure that people's right to vote is protected, and therefore the For the People Act should be enacted. And it has many other provisions besides protecting the right to vote. We need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and there are so many other areas that we need to cover. And I do note that the AAPI community has very much suffered disproportionately from the pandemic because so many of our community members are in the healthcare fields, for example, as doctors, as nurses, caregivers. So many of our community are in the essential services area where they have been exposed in unsafe working conditions to the virus. And so many of them have tested positive and been hospitalized and died disproportionately. So there's a lot of work for us to do together. And this is an alliance, and that is what we need to do. We need to do a allyship. That's a word I just learned. I think it's a good word. So thank you very much as we go forward in our
It's a great word. Senator Booker will join us in a second, and Senator Duckworth was having some difficulty coming in, but she will join us as well. So, Natalie, do you want to ask the question about representation?
Absolutely. Senator Hirono, this question is for you, and of course, Senator Benray, if you want to answer as well. So from Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, the first Latina elected to United States Senate in the history, to Senator Tammy Duckworth, the first woman with a disability elected to Congress, to Reverend Ralph Warnock, the first African-American to represent Georgia in the United States Senate. Our unity celebration today was made possible as a result of senators breaking diversity barriers and voters of color who elected diverse candidates. Can you speak to us tonight to why diverse representation matters to you and why it is important for the American people to have a diverse government? And let's take it a step further. Could you tell our audience why creating a more representative democracy leads to better policy outcomes?
Well, of course, when you have a diversity of backgrounds and experiences, then you have a fuller debate and discussion on issues that affect all of us. And so these different viewpoints need to be articulated at the table, and one hopes that when we hear from other people that we can make better decisions. So the diversity in any arena where decisions are made is very important. So it can be in the corporate arena. It certainly is important in the political arena, and that diversity should reflect the diversity that is our country. And that is so important to model leadership at all levels from diverse groups of people. So, we're doing a lot better, I'd say, in the U.S. House with regard to diversity, both in the Republican and Democratic side. And so I think that that representation of different viewpoints is critical.
Now, what I would add is being at the table. And as Lin-Manuel Miranda reminded us through Hamilton, in the room where it happens, being in that room to raise our voices and to be able to share the perspectives of communities across America that have often been left out of those conversations. Myself and Raphael Warnock are also the first 2 United States senators that are serving that went to Head Start. Think about how now it's only a few decades old, right? We go back to the 70s with the creation of Head Start. But to have 2 United States senators now at the table talking about access to education, and especially with the challenges that our families are facing today, it makes a difference. And that's why we need everyone engaged at every level. Whether you're knocking on doors, you're making phone calls, you're able to help with a contribution, whether it's $1 or you're able to help with more. And for those of you that have decided, maybe you're not running for office yet, I want to challenge you, because we also need more people running for office at every level across America. And I hope that between the table that Stephanie and Shaker and Natalie represent here, that we're going to inspire a whole new generation to get involved with school boards and governors, the presidency, senators, and U.S. representatives. And so I get excited about this, but we need more people in the room where it happens, helping to change the conversation and representing these different views.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Lujan. And we need to support each other, because otherwise we all end up getting the scraps, I feel. Senator Booker, how are you, sir?
Shaker, how are you, my friend?
Very well, thank you, sir. We heard from the Vice President. She was inspiring.
I first of all, when is she not? And second of all, why do you need to hear from me? It's like I'm basically playing after like the Rolling Stones, for crying out loud.
Because we need to get things done, she said. She wants to be the place where she signs things that you get done. So that's, I think, the purpose. Stephanie, I'm going to let you, bring Senator Booker into the conversation.
Why? Stephanie's always so mean to me, for crying out loud. Why? I was hoping that you would be my inquisitor, Shaker.
I will do this. I will do it too, and Natalie will too. And by the way, this picture is the picture that we want to show America. This is the picture of collaboration, of solidarity, of power, frankly. And Stephanie, let let you take it, please.
Thank you, Shaker. And it's always a pleasure to quiz Senator Booker. But I have to say, it is also an especially great honor to say Senator Lujan.
Yeah, amen.
Here with Senator Hirono. Thank you all for your service. And I think Natalie really teed it up about the representation question. And I want to turn us to immigration. There's often a few misconceptions about immigration. One is that, immigrants into this country only come from one part of the world. Second is really an oversight of the great contributions of immigrants to this country. Immigrants have built this country. We are a part of this country. We're the fabric of this country. And yet we overlook the humanitarian aspect of immigration. We overlook the economics of immigration. And so I want to get your thoughts, senators, on how can we convey the importance of immigration in a humanitarian way, but also in a way that shows America is made stronger when we have real immigration reform and are able to treat all of our immigrants in the human way that they should be treated.
I know Corey just joined us, but I just want to note that comprehensive immigration reform is very important. And of course, as the only immigrant serving in the Senate right now, I have some lived experiences of coming to a country not knowing anything, not having anything, not knowing the language, and the experiences that immigrants go through wanting to create a better life for themselves. It's still what draws so many of us to this country. And so I hope that we will be able to do certain things that will enable millions of undocumented people, essential workers and others, to have a path to citizenship, including the DACA participants. So that's on the table for the Senate, and that is very purposeful work for me.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. And it is often seen, as Stephanie said, as a issue only on the border or only a Latino issue. It's a huge issue for AAPIs, Europeans, Africans. Senator Booker, would you like to take Tell us when we're going to get comprehensive immigration reform.
Look, I think that right now and I don't mean to be cynical about this, but I was on the floor having a conversation with some Republicans the other day. I think that this is a political issue for them right now. The vilification of immigrants right now is fueling, I think, much of the party, and I think a lot of it's whipped up, and I think that they're wrongfully trying to create this resentment towards immigration at best. And it's wrong, by the way. First of all, we have net zero immigration from Mexicans into America now. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions, and then sometimes it's just outright bigotry that we see when people are saying openly America should be a white country, which has never been the truth of our nation, nor the truth of our hope. The hope for our nation is that we will show the planet Earth what a true multicultural democracy can be. And we know diverse teams are better teams, from Harvard Business School studies to McKinsey to our own history. When you bring hidden figures together with white male astronauts, you literally defy gravity and go where no man or woman has gone before. So I just think we have to understand that change doesn't come from Washington. It comes to Washington. It's how we passed civil rights, workers' rights, suffrage laws. And we need to start creating, I think, as Stephanie, I hate giving her this credit because she's so mean to me, but Stephanie is right, is that we have so many misconceptions. I mean, just the 800,000 or so dreamers contribute billions of dollars to our economy. Over 5 million undocumented workers are in the essential category through this pandemic. The bill, I came here in 2013, right after the Senate passed a comprehensive bipartisan immigration bill that died in the House. That bill alone would have added trillions of dollars over this time, 2013 to now. In this little time, it would have added $1 trillion to our economy's bottom line, trillions of dollars. And so from the H-1B visa crisis, the temporary protective status crisis, to just the insecurity that these young people, now in their 30s, many of them, are living with right now, the fear, the worries about their parents, none of this is good. Nobody is winning with this broken system, but that people are benefiting because they're twisting the truth, they're not telling the whole truth, or they're trying to prey upon the fragilities of populations that are in need. There are real issues with good union jobs disappearing. There are real issues about economic insecurity growing in our country. But to lay the blame at the feet of your straw woman or man immigrant, and not at the truth that net immigrants in this country, are even undocumented, are creating jobs, to not lay at the feet of what the real issues are, is problematic. So I'm hoping we can have a much more comprehensive push, a bigger coalition, a bigger alliance. And what Maisie said, hallelujah. First of all, everybody here should have her copy of her book. If you don't, you need to go out and get it. Shaker, I'm not putting you on the spot whether you have it or not, but she is the only, to my knowledge, non-native born American in the Senate. And when she's been one of the instigators of what I didn't even stop, and I was so focused on other things when she came to me and said in our caucus that there are 8 minorities. This is a chance for us to grow, to show America what the diversity that we have. So I'm sorry I talked on too long. That's what happens.
I'm going to let Senator Lujan, because I know he has a hard stop. So Senator Lujan, response and any last minute things before we continue to grill Senator Booker.
Okay, before you start, Ben, I also have a hard stop, so I'll wait until Ben speaks.
Please go ahead.
Then
I'll stick around longer.
The only thing I would emphasize, Shaker, with what Senator Booker laid out is the economic realities, which are only positive with the passage of comprehensive immigration reform. And look, for everyone out there that is not on board yet with comprehensive immigration reform, that cares about the economy, if we're going to keep up with GDP growth, we need comprehensive immigration reform. And let's understand the magnitude of the contributions economically that will lead. Let's also remember what Maisie just pointed out. Everyone that was on the front lines, when we would go to the grocery stores, people that were stocking shelves. Where was that food from? Where was it being produced? Where was it prepared? Think about the number of people that were still cooking food. Think about your favorite restaurant. Where you go to see your favorite chef, or folks that you've gone to know to go to school with your kids, your providers. Everyone that was out there keeping our loved ones alive and sacrificing their own lives and not being able to be with their loved ones to give them a hug at night. There's an immigrant story to be told from all over the world. And I'm just hopeful we can get there, Shaker. Now, I'll close with this. Out of the House of Representatives, the Dream and Promise Act passed with bipartisan support, led by Democrats, but also with Republicans. The Farm Worker Modernization Act, 30 Republicans recently voted for the passage of that. This should not be hard.
Yes.
And if only our colleagues can see through this, my colleagues from the other side of the aisle, it's right there for us to do the right thing. And we have a president that will sign this into law. And that's what still gives me hope, Shaker. We're not going to give up on this, and we're going to keep pushing to get it across the finish line. And to each and every one of you, my gratitude for what you do day in and day out, and what I've learned from each and every one of you. To be here with Senator Booker, with Senator Hirono, with Vice President Harris, this is so humbling for me, and it's special. And every time I get a chance to hear them speak, Corey can attest to this, I'll quiet down on the floor and I seek him and I tap him on the shoulder and I look up to Corey and I just feed off that knowledge. So to each and every one of you, thank you for what you do. Let's continue to make a difference. There's power in numbers. Together we'll grow. Thanks for having me.
Hey, and Ben Ray, I really appreciate you announcing that when we get comprehensive immigration reform done, you'll shave your head. It was really a bold thing for you to say.
I'll say it right now. We passed comprehensive immigration reform. Maybe we'll do some social media. I'm going to get a Corey haircut. I'll do it.
You'll also become a vegan, Corey.
Yes.
You can just imagine the headlines tomorrow.
Mahalo to all of you, Stephanie, Natalie, Shaker, and of course my friend Corey. You're going to stay on and
I'm going to stay on and deal with Shaker.
Hear more of your wisdom. Okay. Aloha.
Thank you. You are our hero.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Aloha. Adios.
Thank you. Natalie, let's take Senator Booker on.
And Natalie just spoke in Spanish and Hawaiian, but she did not speak in New Jersey. I don't understand why.
Well, my son is from Jersey, so I have a Jersey boy. He was born in Princeton, so Jersey is very dear to my heart. Julian.
Yourself.
So I can speak some New Jersey as well. But it's so great to have you here, Senator. Obviously we were in conversation with the Vice President and how important it is to be united and as one. Strength in numbers, as Senator Ben Ray talked about. And, but what keeps you hopeful, Senator? In so many ways, as the world is, feels like there's so much going on in Palestine, Israel, and in India with the deaths that are happening, what keeps you going? And what keeps you coming back to this work and your dedication and your championship in so many ways? What keeps me going is being here with you. I mean, with all of you, a sense of unity that we are going to move agendas forward, and we're going to ensure that we have leaders, Black leaders, brown leaders, Asian leaders at all levels of this country. But what keeps you going day in and day out?
So how can I not feel hopeful when I have seen people who have every reason to surrender to cynicism or to delve into despair, and yet they are still hopeful? So I made a decision when I was coming out of law school to move into a Black and brown neighborhood. I live in the central ward of the city I love, Newark, New Jersey. And there are so many incredible people. We named a street after a woman who's now passed, elderly woman when I met her, but one of the scariest people. She was 5 feet tall, toughest people I've ever met. The tenant president of these high-rise projects that I once moved into. And I found out after I moved in that her son had been murdered in the lobby. And I remember asking her, after the most wretched, horrific tragedy, why she would stay in those buildings. I knew where she worked. She made so much money. And in her job, I knew she could afford to live in other places. And I'll never forget. I asked her why she still lives there. And she goes, why do I still live in Brick Towers? I go, yes, ma'am. Why do I still live in apartment 5A? I go, yes, ma'am. Why am I still the tenant president since these buildings were built in 1969? I go, yes, ma'am. And then she looks at me proudly with a smile. She goes, because I'm in charge of Homeland Security. And I just think that I am inspired every day by people who are, despite not having status, even though they served teaching children or delivering food, people who, despite working 60, 70 hours a week, still fighting at poverty wages, that still believe in the promise of America. Hope is the active conviction that despair will never have the last word. And I believe fundamentally that the seduction of despair is real and it's always there. But we every day not just have to choose hope, but we have to be hope by staying in the fight, by never giving up, by never surrendering.
Senator Booker, I'm going to ask you about a subject that is of deep concern to us. The Vice President today talked about it, and it's voter suppression and voter disenfranchisement. I mean, look, it feels like one side has decided that we have to limit voter participation for them to win, and rather than encourage it. So why is this not the civil rights issue of the decade? Why is this not the issue, the moral issue that all of you can, it's moral cowardice to do what is being done in these states. So what we have to ask you is really, one, how do we make this into a moral issue, not just an issue of who wins, who loses, but why isn't that, number one, the case? Number two, how can you work with us and with organizations on the ground to combat these anti-democratic policies, to talk about the proper education and information? And I know Stephanie will have a follow-up on this. So,
yeah, well, I'll be as succinct as possible. We know when North Carolina was stopped on one of the laws that they did years ago, the federal judge, not that many years ago, the federal judge said that you designed this law with surgical precision to stop blacks from voting. This is not hiding the ball. This is attempts to suppress votes in order to secure power. In many ways, it seems to be a lurch towards authoritarianism, that we're not trying to support a more robust democracy with more people voting, but we are trying to suppress the vote in order to sustain power. Because the question is, look at Georgia. What is the impetus? All their election officials said this was the securest election. All the Republican officials, their Secretary of State and others, said there was no problem here. Through incredible pressure from the president, they stood up and said no problem. But now their legislature says, oh wait, there's a problem. And they passed laws to restrict voting. And so a lot of these anti-democratic forces are all connected. This is directly connected to Trump's lie and whipping up his supporters to believe this lie, that somehow there was widespread voter fraud and we need to correct for a problem. When the instances of in-person voter fraud in America are so rare that you're more likely to be struck by lightning and win the lottery. So we know that this is not a real problem. This is a strategy of suppression. So what do we do about it was the second part of your question. How do we ignite people? I know of no other way of winning those kind of battles, of igniting folks, than finding ways to drive this into the national conversation more than it is now. Civil rights communities ask that same question over and over. How can this segregation last? How can the violence last? 4 girls die in a church bombing. Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner die in the swamps of Mississippi. Medgar Evers. You could keep going through all of those. James Meredith. People shot, people killed, people bombed, Fred Shuttlesworth beaten. Well, how can this go on? But civil rights workers said, you know what? We are going to continue to dramatize this problem to the point that people can't ignore it. Marchers stood before Bull Connor and dogs and fire hoses and ignited the moral imagination of this country about the truth of who we are. We've got to find better ways of doing it. And Shekhar, this coalition that you're talking about, powerful, powerful. When we show common cause, when the issues of facing AAPI community are being screamed at by those who months ago were screaming about Black Lives Matter, when we realize that there's common interests here, that's when I think we gain more strength. But all of us have to think about how we can be agents and instigators and ignition points of more consciousness, more conviction, and a greater coalition.
So Stephanie, I'm going to let you follow on, and Natalie, and then I'll wrap up with Senator Booker here in 2 minutes. I know he's got to go too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I just have to say, thank you, Shaker, for including the Collective PAC, for including Latino Victory Fund. We are honored to share this space with you, and congratulations on the new think tank that is coming. Senator Booker, this is my last question for you. Also, it's very good to see you with your glasses. I know your staff is tired of reading the big print to you. So with that being said, Senator, I'm a former Girl Scout, and I looked forward to getting my badges.
Hold on, I want to stop you right there. You know, Girl Scout cookies, a lot of the brands are now vegan. Did you know that?
Of course, I did not know that, but thank you. You always educate. You always educate. Thank you, Senator. And if there were a badge given to you, it would definitely say criminal justice warrior, fighter, crusader on it. You have made it a point to fight for criminal justice reform your entire career. You helped to author and shepherd the First Step Act, the Fair Chance Act. Want to know, where do we go from here on criminal justice reform? Do you see a horizon where we get actual real reforms that change people's lives? And what can we do as your partners in this work to help you do your job more better is not a word, but more better, Senator.
Mo better, come on, my sister. Mo better is a word. Don't
That's
insult
definitely
Spike Lee.
2 words, Stephanie, and it works. More better.
So look, my friend, the irony of the question, this is Shekhar, this is why she's smooth, is because she's asking me a question that her very life is a testimony to answering. Because her organization is doing extraordinary things to understand that it's not just federal actors. We got to work on this in every layer of government. So her organization is fighting in states. They're fighting to make sure attorney generals, that we change the very conception of what a prosecutor is. She's working all over this. So I may have one badge. She's got a whole bunch of badges that she has earned already. And she's like 25 years younger than me. That makes me angry. I will tell you this. I want to talk to everybody on this call, hopefully a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, because we are getting closer and closer in this negotiations over police reform. But it's got to be something that this coalition says, you know what, that's not everything I want, but it gets us further down the road. Just like the First Step Act, nowhere near the kind of sentencing reform we need, but it liberated thousands of people from prison. Look, we are all together in a larger picture. None of us is going to solve all the problems. But the more we strengthen our coalitions, as the old African saying says, spider webs united can tie up a lion. As the old African saying says, sticks in a bundle can't be broken. As the old African saying says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. The more we create that togetherness, the more vamos a tener éxito tremenda. We're going to have success that's tremendous. So Shekhar, I'm sorry it's taken me so long to come to this gathering. But once you just laid the gauntlet down and said, the vice president's busier than you and she's showing up. But every organization that's represented here, I am committed to being in coalition with you, to multiplying our strength through that coalition and to achieving greater justice. So when we do hand the baton over to that young generation that Stephanie is a part of, I think she's like Generation Z, that we know we're handing over the baton having taken them far further than even we thought possible.
I'm going to let Natalie thank you.
Well, really, I really have not much to say except thank you. What an honor it is to share the stage with Stephanie Brown James, with Shaker, with obviously you, Senator Booker, with Kamala Harris, with Ben Ray Lujan, with all the distinguished people that came, Senator Hironi. So this was uplifting. It's powerful. It's strong. And let us help you, Senator, and anybody else that wants to be united in strength. Because that's how we grow our power and ensure that we're growing together. So Shaker, thank you. And with that, I'll turn it to you.
Senator Booker, I know you have to go, but I just want to tell you something Stephanie told me, and it wasn't about you, so nothing to worry.
Shoo.
Stephanie basically said, look, we have to do two things. We have to learn how to win together, but we also need to know how to be practical and educate together.
Yeah.
So we will not get everything every time in what is put out and what you win for us, but we have the job of explaining to people why that win was good enough and why we need to go to the next fight. So that's our commitment to you, that we will have your back, and I let you have the last word before you have to leave.
I'm grateful, and I love everybody here, and love is not sentimentality. It is sacrifice, service, and struggle. So I'm happy to be in struggle and in service with you all, and I'm looking forward to the days ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Senator Booker. See you all very soon.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Good night.
I know.
And let me just bring the program to close to a conclusion. We have a video from Senator Alex Padilla of California coming up next. And immediately after that, we prepared a special video with our coalition partners on unity. And as soon as those end, we will close out this session to move into the next one with Secretary Clinton, with our fearless leader, Varun Nikor, who is president of the AAPI Victory Fund and also executive director of the AAPI Victory Alliance. He is absolutely tireless in his efforts, and I'm honored to have him as a partner. So take it away to the videos, and we'll see you around the corner soon. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Senator Alex Padilla, wishing you a happy Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Every year it's important to celebrate California's beautiful diversity, our nation's wonderful diversity that makes our nation and our economy stronger. But this year's celebration takes on some additional significance. The devastation of the COVID-19 pandemic for more than a year now has taken a tremendous toll on so many communities, so many families, from a health perspective and from an economic perspective. And sadly, it's also ushered in another wave of hate crimes across the country, particularly hate crimes targeting our Asian Pacific American brothers and sisters. So as California's newest United States Senator, it was especially important that among the first bills I helped champion was for me to serve as co-sponsor of the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act to ensure that we're bringing the power and the resources of the federal government to bear to prevent hate crimes, to root out the hate that leads to hate crimes, and ensure safety, security, justice, and freedom for our Asian Pacific American brothers and sisters and all of us. That's what this nation is all about. So thank you again for having me as part of today's program. Wishing you a great event, and I'm just so proud to be your representative in the United States Senate. Thank you.
During the last election, voters of color made history. We proved once again the power of our vote is undeniable. Communities of color delivered the election to President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris.
Voting is very important to me because our voices need to be heard.
We saw record-breaking voter turnout, and we stood together and demanded more for our communities. From Arizona to Georgia, when we band together, unified in our demands for a more equitable, representative government, we create sweeping change. We must continue to stand shoulder to shoulder in solidarity with one another, and we must demand more for our communities. Together.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege to introduce the one, the only Tan France.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Madam Vice President, for your amazing words and recognition for the AAPI community. Thank you to the AAPI Victory Alliance and the AAPI Victory Fund for inviting me here this evening. I'm here because, like all of you, I believe in the power of our AAPI community to create change. Not only are we an incredibly strong, diverse community We also played a pivotal role in electing President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. We are the fastest growing electorate in the entire country, and not only that, AAPI voter turnout increased 46% from 2016 to 2020, and that's because of all of the hard work that we delivered. The AAPI Victory Fund is committed to engaging and empowering AAPI progressive voters to be the margin of victory up and down the ballot. They're harnessing the power of our community and demanding representation at all levels of government. So, I'm asking you to support the critical organizations and the work they engage in. Support AAPI candidates, share knowledge of the AAPI community, and stop AAPI hate. We are strong when we use our collective voices to demand more from our communities. Thank you.
Our sincere thank you to the Vice President, our own Kamala Harris, for joining us today. Her presence is full recognition that as an AAPI community, we have arrived. There's so much that makes up the term AAPI. Perhaps there's not full recognition that West Asians and Pacific Islanders, as well as Native Hawaiians, are also AAPI, not to mention South Asians and East Asians. And while we did not make up the term AAPI, which covers the origins of 4 billion people in America in 2020, we have proven that AAPIs are beginning to work as one more unified community. And yet, even as AAPIs, we cannot do the hard work of moving our agenda forward, helping to stem the tide of hate and violence perpetrated on our communities without the allyship and partnership of Black, Latino, and Indigenous communities, along with all marginalized people. Thank you to Collective and Latino Victory for joining us today. Most importantly, we say thanks to each and every one of you, the hundreds and thousands of activists around our nation whose passion, hard work, and commitment made the election possible for a President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. We stand unified, united, and in unity as we move forward in making a government that works for all of us and America a better place for us and our families. Thank you for joining us today, and stick around for our next event with Hillary Clinton, Simu Liu, Rich Verma, and Lisa Ling.